everybody, and thank you for joining us on another session of the Red Ladder discussion, Empowered Women Helping to Empower Other Women. I got a great panel today, coming from sunny, rainy London, and let's get straight away to give time to the member of my panel. They will introduce each other. We'll start with Susie. Susie, please tell us a little bit about you. What makes you to commit to women in technology? What do you like doing? And same for Sangeetha and Indira. Susie, you go first.
Hi, thank you. My name is Susie West. I am an IT director at Consumers Energy. What makes me tick and why I want to help women be empowered to do more is, as I was becoming an up-and-coming leader for my career, I had many women in my path that helped and guided me into that direction. And I want to be that person for others as they are working through their career as well.
Awesome. Thank you. Sangeetha.
Sure. Thanks, Siki. Happy to be here. So Sangeetha Varghese, Director for Data Governance and Quality with Rogers Communications, based out of Calgary, Canada. Why am I here? So what Susie said is also one reason, but another reason is also I see the value in having empowered people, empowered women across the organization, across all levels. So I think as a society, it's something that brings more value to all of us. So that's why I'm here, and I would love to help in whatever way I can.
Thank you, Sangeetha. And Anne, let us know a little bit about you and why you love this topic.
Hi, my name's Ann Binder. I'm a Vice President, Customer Support and Service at Northwestern Mutual, based in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I just think this is a very, very important topic. I know my mother was a very strong woman. She blazed trails. She was the first in our family to go and get a college degree. She enabled myself, my sister, my brothers to think and be strong. And I have a daughter, and I want to make sure she thinks and is a strong woman. She actually has a research cohort, and I called them the wise, amazing, wonderful women, because they are also strong women. And I just want to help them as well as others.
Awesome. Let's, pass it forward. Indira, a little bit about you and why you love this topic.
Sure. Thank you, Siki. And so Indira Yedavilli, I'm originally from India. I work right now as a VP of IT for Franklin Templeton, based out of Stamford, Connecticut. And similar to actually what Anne just said, my sensibilities are, I come from a very empowered women family. My mom's a physician. I'm one of 3 sisters. The biggest thing that I was raised with is never being told I am a girl. We were raised gender neutral. We were raised to just be independent, capable, go drive forward. But as I started working, I noticed not everybody was raised that way. And I noticed that it helps for them to know that there's nothing limiting you. And my experiences have taught me that when I lead a team, which has ironically predominantly been men all my career, it helps them also understand what does it mean to have a woman leader, how to understand the sensibilities that come with it. So I've had a fantastic journey teaching men how to deal with their women colleagues and teaching women how to champion for themselves. So that's why I'm here to continue that journey forward.
Awesome. I think we are all in sync and we are all determined on our scope. So I'm going to start the first questions with Sangeetha. So why is it hard in tech to have more women? What do you think is the cause in your point of view? And we go around the panel because I think everybody has a little bit of a point of view. But if we understand the cause, a lot of time we can act on them, and we can share it with, other young colleagues, female colleagues that want to join tech. So what do you think?
I think there are like many causes. So like Indira, I mostly grew up in India. 3 girls as well, Indira, and parents are physicians as well. So, we were also raised, being a girl was never something we talked about. You just go out and do your thing. But as you go through life, you see that that's not how many others were raised. What's interesting is, so my undergrad, I have an engineering degree. We had about 25% of girls in my class, or in my whole cohort in my specialization. So I guess you're starting to see a dip there. And then when I talk to, so I have kids as well, when I talk to so I have a son and a daughter. My son, some of his friends, even though they're very strong on science, it seems that some of them have a barrier about, they just don't think about technology as a long-term career or something they want to do. And I think there's something coming from society around that. I think when they look around, they don't see many women. So then it just doesn't seem as an option for them. And as part of, I think, what we celebrate about typical traits associated with women, somehow they're not presented as complementary to the skills you need in technology. So I think these all just raise these little barriers in their head about, oh, that's not even an option. So I think that's kind of where to and I will pass it over to Susie to make the video.
All right, thank you. So I would agree with everything that Sangeetha said, and then add in, to get more women involved in tech, you really want to have like a nurturing environment. So starting with like when they're young, having some educational initiatives. I know that I volunteered in like First Robotics and Digital Divas, and that just like really introduced some of the aspects of STEM to the women, the young women starting like middle school was for Digital Divas. And then First Robotics, I actually volunteered with a high school team, and they have to do a bunch of stuff, computer programming, getting this robot ready, getting it out there, making, this robot do things that, design tasks and reach goals. And they have to do all that within 6 weeks. So they have to work together. And it just really is helpful to see that after you get to that educational, like that foundation set, I would then say as you get into the workforce, you need to have a supportive environment. So are we there encouraging those women to continue on growing? We're not putting them down. We're not letting family life get in the way. We're being flexible and allowing them to adapt and being able to do that, because most women are nurturing and they want to be there for their children, and they're trying to say, do I have to have a career over children? And really you can have both if you provide that supportive environment for them. And then finally, one of the biggest things for me is a diverse leadership. If you don't have women as your senior leaders, as your CEO, as your vice presidents, there's just not going to be a lot that you're going to aspire to, because you're going to think, oh, I plateaued, I can't get anywhere. So having that diverse leadership is really helpful as well. So, and with that, I'll pass it over to Anne.
Yeah, thank you. So, when I think about this topic, and I've been doing a lot of self-examination lately, because I've been in tech for over 37 years. And I've been talking there's a lot of initiative now to talk about, allies, men allies and allies of women. And so I've been talking to several of them, and they're like, well, have you experienced, differentiation? And I find myself thinking about it going, I don't think I was aware of it in the early years, but I spent the majority of my career as the only woman in the room. And so I'm much more aware of it now. And I haven't altered how I interact with young women or young men. I give them the same advice, but I make sure that I am providing that encouragement And the same things that some of the men mentors helped me learn, I make sure I want to pass that on, and make sure that we're advocating for them, making sure that we're confirming that women can be in this career as well.
I think that's very important, and I think we'll talk later really practically what can you do generically. But Indira, what's your point of view? What's been your experience really?
So definitely, I think I've had I guess 4 different jobs so far, and the current one being at Franklin Templeton. I do see a big shift when the audience and the consumers we service is a combination. So should the leadership be, so should the teams that create the solutions be. That there should be parity across the board. I mean, you cannot create a solution for a woman consumer if you have no woman representing the strategies or operations or what have you. So that's one part of my thinking. And then an extension of that to what Susie was touching on, I was also one of the volunteers for FTC, FRC, the first robotics competitions. And there's nothing cooler than seeing these young women getting on their knees, getting their hands dirty, fixing those robots. I've seen my son from when he was first grade to now he's a undergrad student. I've seen how the children, when they were young, the girls were always given the project management task. And it took an intentional mentorship from parents to say, you don't have to just put the coordinating and the calendars together. You can actually tighten the screw, you can make the robot, you can be whatever you want to be. But once you start normalizing it as a parent, the children also don't view it as something they cannot do. Do what you can, but don't limit yourself just because of your gender. There are plenty of boys who cannot fix a mechanical object. There's plenty of girls who can. So just treat them as gender neutral. What can you do as opposed to what should you do? That's at least my take on how do we standardize the whole thing, if you will.
And I believe that I think there is still stereotyping. These things you go and do the project manager. I just came out of a tech academy, and the person says, oh, you're gonna go in sales, and say, no, I'm not gonna go in sales. I love selling because people has to buy, but I want to know, I want to be in there so that I can share my experience with my clients. And I think a lot of it is coexistence of the two different approach together. I think when there is a brother and a sister, when there's this and that, I think or otherwise is very strong leadership. But technology, as you say, Sangeetha, there is still this idea. I have 3 nieces, and really basically only one is in technology. She does heavy social media with technology, but they still think, I'm not going to write an app, so why should I do that? So practically, if you had to give 2 practical examples to a young yourself that really wants to go in technology and really good reason for it, what would you say?
My first advice would be never assume the other person knows what you can do. You are the best judge of what you bring to the table, and stay relevant, stay articulate, and what value do you add to the process. Don't tell yourself that I cannot, start with I can, or start with a plan to negotiate. This is the vision, this is how far I can go, but be comfortable to have the uncomfortable conversation. And always be willing to listen. If somebody is comfortable being brutally candid with you, don't take it personally. Focus on the intent and not the content. I think there's too much emphasis given to, I feel words do matter, but try to read the conversation beyond just the words. That would be my advice to any of the younger generation, women or men for that matter.
Awesome. I love everything. And what would you say? I think you probably said it a lot of times, but just right.
You know, I tend to give the same advice to both men and women. And, you know, whether they're going into IT or not, I think it's applicable to IT, which is I always tell them, choose a career you like and make sure you enjoy it. You spend a lot of time on this journey. And it's true whether you're a scientist or in IT, make sure you're enjoying it, because you spend a lot of time doing it. You're going to invest a heck of a lot of yourself into it. And make sure you're doing it so that you have a fun journey. And don't forget, it's the journey. It is not the end you're on to. And then the other aspect I say is make sure you definitely celebrate the everyday victories, whether it's you implemented some code and put it in, whether it's, you know, you defended your thesis, you gotta, or you just had a thought and spent a good day, you know, coding. Make sure you celebrate those small things, because it is a long career and you need to have fun while you're doing it.
Awesome. Fun is important. Susie.
Yeah, thank you. So the two that, I mean, I totally agree with what Ann and Indira said. I believe in that wholeheartedly myself. I guess the biggest things that I would say is, as also a person that walked into not at work being the only woman in the room, but actually in the classroom where I was learning to write code and being, you know, wanting to go into computer science, I walked into a classroom where I was the only one there. And the biggest thing that I would say is don't get discouraged. Stay there. Persevere. You can do it. Like, don't ever let anybody tell you you can't. I was a little overwhelmed, I'll be honest, when I walked in and saw that there's this classroom of 36 people and I was the only one there. So that was a female. But it ended up being well. Some of those people are still great friends of mine today, and I bounce things off of them all the time. Another thing that I would say is, as a woman, and you know, going into like the tech field and all of that, is don't let, if you can't figure something out and you're a woman, so earlier in my career, if I couldn't figure something out, I didn't want to go ask a man to help me. Like, I wanted to try to figure it out myself, and that did not always go over well. Don't sell yourself short. Just because you can't figure something out doesn't mean somebody else doesn't have a good idea. Use everybody around you. Build that cadence with everyone. You can do it. You are the strongest person there, and only you can make yourself achieve greatness. So believe in yourself. You can do it.
Awesome. Belief is important. Sangeetha, what's your...
It's harder as you get at the end of the discussion, right? Because everyone's made some really amazing points, and I agree with all of them wholeheartedly. The other thing that I would add is, I think when you're young, one thing I try to tell younger women is just start paying attention to what gives you joy. Where are you getting your satisfaction? Where do you get a kick out of, you know, you're like, that felt good. Pay attention to that inside. We need to keep awareness with what's happening with us outside, and that's very important, but also anchor into what do you like, and don't be afraid. Try new things, you know, but then now you have an awareness of these are my strengths and I'm going to go figure something out. So I think that awareness is very important. And then again, like Anne, I think there's some universal principles that I share with a lot of youngsters. It's around always be curious and start from a place of seeking to learn, because when you're coming from a place of wanting to learn and understand, you can ask a question to anyone and that intention comes through, and then it's not a confrontational asking questions for the sake of it or an ego. You're really coming from that place to understand. So I think having that focus on continuous learning plus that self-awareness of what gives you joy, I think is something that will then help them navigate some of the barriers or challenges. And I loved how you said you didn't even recognize it. And I'm thinking it's probably because you're just focused on the work and how to move forward, how to learn. So those other barriers may not affect you that much. Not saying it's not there, but I think that's a way to keep yourself grounded.
I totally agree. When I get the question why tech and what it makes you tick, is to me is the magical aspect. I've been many years in tech, and I went from things that they were ugly and unpractical and you couldn't even take it around, to having laptops and apps and getting your Uber to the doctor appointment, and incredible things. And to me, I am fascinated about that. And even if I can be part of it in a fractional point, is the things that makes me wake up every morning. What it is, the next things that my clients are going to do, that my partners are going to do, that I can get involved. And it takes a little bit of a self-awareness, as you said, and willingness of, get that curiosity going so you can do the training. Because that was one area one young mentee says, it's a lot. And I told them, you're pretty young. You were born with a cell phone. How many new versions of that cell phone have you gone through? At least 18, I can tell you. Was that hard? No. So it's kind of the same thing, but it's not for everybody if you don't have that. And if you don't have the curiosity and a little bit of the discipline to just say, I don't know, but I'll put the time to learn, because it's kind of important. So now I'm going to ask questions that you probably didn't have in yours, but it is important to go forward, I think. I would like to have your opinion. Why do you think female are different in their management styles and things? Because we have that clarity and why it's, in a kind of way, some of you has said it, but in tech, I think there is still 4% of CEOs. I've been a CEO 3 times. There's still 28-30% of tech, young female that come in the workforce and everything. But I think it's an important part of leadership, because we do have a different leadership style, especially in technology. So if you can give me your opinion why, with some practical example, why, you being a leader in that moment, you made a difference, and you being a female leader made a difference.
Okay. I shy away from saying women have gender-based differences and characteristics. I don't like that, because every time you say something like that, you can say, oh, women have more intellectual or self-awareness or emotional IQ. But every time you say something like that, there's a man who also has that too. So I really shy away from saying that there are gender specific differences. I tend to go and lean on the fact that we need more women in leadership in tech is much more on what makes sense to me. The world is just under 50% women. It doesn't make sense to me that the leadership in business or a specific industry doesn't reflect that same ratio. So, I totally buy into equality. I think that the genders and the races of our leadership of different companies and world populations should reflect that. And so I guess that's kind of my thoughts on that particular subject. And it's the simple outcome of diverse thinking. Different people have different perspectives and diverse thinking, and our leadership and heads of companies should reflect that.
It's our leadership to ask. What do you think, Susie?
Yeah, I totally agree with Anne. As I was sitting here thinking, I was thinking that it's diversity. Women and also in the leadership, and they can bring on unique aspects, and we think a little bit differently. You know, you can get into the chemical and the biological reasons of that. So they bring that in to the leadership thought as well. And I think it just, if you have men and women both, you can get more of a well-rounded decision-making trend going. Women can be innovative too, just like men. I just think that having women present inspired me, like when I was talking about the classroom where I walked in and it was all men. Well, here comes the professor and she happened to be a woman, you know, and so that also helped inspire me to want to achieve more and think, hey, I could make that leadership role as well. And I think if it just stays men in those leadership roles, you're not going to bring those other aspects that we as women, we face that a man just might not understand, you know, like female issues and those type of things that come up. And when you have a well-rounded decision-making, you know, group of folks that are leading you, you can get to that a little easier.
Awesome. Sangeetha.
All good. I think I'm also very careful about associating like very specific characteristics with genders, because I will say growing up, I was the society I was in I was a bit of a tomboy. I was very good at math. So I would get people tell me stuff like, oh, you have the brains of a boy. I'm like, I don't know whether I don't know what to make out of it, right? So am I less of a woman? Or like, is that a problem? You know, when you're a teenager, you can't make sense of these things. And I have heard women leaders that I've had the privilege of working with saying, you know, their style changed. So when they entered the workforce, they embraced more of what they thought were masculine characters to be able to succeed. And now they're maybe slowly walking that down, but they don't feel true to yourself. And I think it also puts pressure on men because now they don't feel comfortable to embrace maybe the more emotional side because there's a box. So I think back to the point of how do you create an environment where everyone can be true to themselves? We're all on like spectrums of how we want to behave, how we show up in different situations. There's a whole conversation of situational leadership. What works one day doesn't work with another day, different situation, different people. So I think, again, back to having that diversity of thought and experiences that you represent based on all the other characteristics, gender, race, all of that, I think just adds value, and it makes it easier, a better place for everyone, I think, because you see different perspectives. And again, now you're, okay, there are more women, typically they're associated with so-and-so, so it doesn't really matter. And you can focus on what is going to matter to deliver the value you want to deliver.
That's a great advice. Be true to yourself. I think, you know, we should all, I think I wake up every morning because it gets too tired to be somebody else. And then your leadership style doesn't develop. And when you're young, you try to mimic a lot. But then when you grow and you have projects and P&Ls and things like that, I think there are certain characteristics, but I love the concept that, you know, everybody's human, everybody bring a human capital there. Indira is back. So what's your point of view on this? Female are better at this because they are characteristics.
I think I completely agree with what everybody said. I was, like I said, raised as one of 3 girls, but I have 2 boys. And I really now have this interesting approach of, if I talk about women as in some way or form being the superior race because they were not represented enough, you're kind of going to reach a point where the scales are skewed the other way. So I think parity in the true sense is where you could be truly gender neutral, because I believe the brain is gender neutral. And in technology is one space where it shouldn't matter. When there was a physical job, there was a reason why we were like hunter-gatherers once upon a time. It was just physically easier for them to do certain things. But if you're talking about a mental job, it shouldn't matter who you are. So I think reaching that place of parity is what we're trying to get to. And since the numbers are skewed, there's so much push on how to put the focus on women getting there. But once you get there, then you'll have to reach a place of let the best human win and not let the best man win. So I think that's really what we need to get to.
I love the concept of a mental gender neutrality. Now we have a little bit of time, and we'll close with one of my favorite topic, that is mentorship. So what do you advise your younger mentee on how to approach mentorship? What does it mean, coaching and things like that? Because sometimes what I find is that we are very empowered, but a little bit like far away. So how do you get close to me? How do I help you? How do we do mentor and coaching? Your advice is going to be so important.
Yeah, so mentorship, I actually love mentorship. It's one of my favorite things to do. And I think that's, as a leader, you get to be a mentor to everybody under you. So that is like one of my favorite things to do. When somebody approached me about how I personally handled mentorship, is I told them I went out and found 2 mentors. I found one that was a male and one that was a female. I wanted to know how both sides worked. And so I have my entire career have had 2 mentors that I've looked up to. And a lot of times, like with some of the mentors that I've showed up to, they wanted to get to know me personally, and they wanted to talk about like where I wanted to go as a career growth and what I wanted to do. Another mentor is very like straight lined and like, okay, these are the steps you have to follow to get there. And I liked that because I got the yin and the yang. And so as I mentor young people, I try to do that myself. If they're not interested in going to get 2 mentors, I try to give them the soft side and encouragement and say, I'm here. If you fall, I'll help pick you up. I'll always be there for you. And then also tell them, here are the steps that you need to take to go do that. Here's where I've been successful. And I start opening doors and clearing pathways for them to be able to reach out to other people within the business, because maybe they don't want to stay in technology. I would love for them to stay in technology because I'm kind of greedy and want to have all those people there. But if they want to leave and want to go do something else, I want to open those doors to allow them to do that. Whatever makes them happy, that's what I want to help them to get to. I believe there's a place for everyone, and we can all get there with the right path and the right support.
Awesome. Sangeetha, you go next.
I mean, I think mentors are absolutely important. When I was younger, I thought about, oh, you have a mentor and you have a concept of a mentor throughout. And I'm now more of, I have several mentors and I get different things from different people. And then you get into formal and informal mentorship. So I was assigned a formal mentor when I did my master's. And it was interesting, by luck, totally by lottery. He was an executive coach. So we had a discovery session. He wasn't sure whether he wanted this would be a good fit because he thought, oh, maybe you need a female mentor would be better. But as we talked, he said, you know what, I think this is going to work, but I will make those introductions to female leaders for you. He still remains a very strong mentor, cheerleader. Whenever I meet him, he's the one who's like, okay, what's next? Keep going, right? Like, and I love that about Mike. But then over time, I think you start building relationships, and in some of those relationships, it's almost, I don't know when they became a mentor in my mind or when I became a mentee for them in their mind. But I've heard others go, oh, they are sponsoring me. They're going out of their way. And I have both males and females. One of the things that I've kind of recognized recently is if it's a formal mentorship, that's fine. Otherwise, it can be a bit too much to ask for someone, hey, can you be my mentor? That's a big ask. But if you focus on getting to know each other, the relationships, and you both have an understanding of what you can help each other with, I think that's maybe an easier transition into a mentor relationship. But of course, when there are formal paths, you are assigned someone, you know this is the expectation. It may go somewhere and it may not go anywhere. That's my take on it.
Awesome. Anne.
So I have many similar philosophies to Sangeetha. I think mentorship is incredibly important, and you should have mentors from all genders and all walks of life. When I'm a mentor, I always advise people to not have just me. They should have multiple mentors, both inside and outside of work. I think of mentors as people who are trusted advisors, or sometimes I call them my tribe, and I want people who come from different genders, experiences, religions, socioeconomic backgrounds, because I need people who think differently from me and who will, I say, kind of smack me on the head and go, Anne, did you think about it like this, right? Or, that they can reframe the situation and ask you questions to make you think about it. So you really don't want them to be the same, but yet they are so important. And they can start out as friends. Sometimes they are friends, just people who have different perspectives, and that you trust enough that you can talk to them about whatever issue or whatever challenge you're dealing with.
So very important concept. I'm going to summarize it because these are gems, really.
Yes. So I guess all of us have had advisors, sometimes when we don't even want it. Who doesn't have somebody telling them what to do? So that said, I view a mentor as a formal tag for an advisor, just like what Anne was saying. Somebody who cares enough to tell you what you should or shouldn't do for you to grow. So if you have them, it's the best thing. And when your mentor is in your professional setting, who, like Sangeetha was touching on, give you those inroads to opportunities. Many of the opportunities that I've had in my career are because somebody I had as a mentor or a sponsor thought I was suitable for a role, which I didn't even know existed. So if not for those informal conversations where I kept the relationships, even if I had no working reason to, it wouldn't have led to the opportunities I got in my career. So I view it as an extension of an interpersonal relationship. And then there is benefit to both folks actually, because they get to also see perspectives on where they could make a shift. And if they own that vertical that you now are responsible for, they have a trusted person on their team. So I've had some phenomenal mentors and sponsors. And right now, with this world of post-COVID where everybody is remote, I don't get an opportunity to do those as much as I'd like. But especially when a new recruit joins the team, and if it is female, I do reach out and say, call me, ping me, don't worry about the title, tell me what's working, what's not. Because I feel that explicit networking, they don't know yet because they spent the last 2 years of college at home because of COVID. So we need to tell them the value of networking and how it leads to mentorship and opportunities down the road.
So awesome. And my only point of view is that going to one of the concept has got to be benefit both ways, and I take that very seriously. I actually, sometimes when I'm studying and doing things, I have to just be honest with the people I'm interacting and say, reason I don't want to be there, but you have to be very straightforward. So very important concept. Have different mentors because this serves for different purposes. Formal versus informal is, I think, extremely important. But from my point of view, at one point, it's got to be formalized because time is spent. Or otherwise, it's just call me when you want, like in India, just come, I will help you with the network. That works too. It's just, it's what everybody wants to get out of it. Friends versus mentor, that's an incredible, I think if I look in my history, if I spend enough time, you are a friend. And, because we are invested in there, but sometimes not a friend buddy, but a friend where you care about it. I just want personally thank you. That was an amazing conversation. I'm sure we all got something personally and something that we give is done on the name of give before you take, and that's the most important rule in my life. So thank you for your time. Thank you for doing this, and we'll share it around, and I'm sure you probably will get as much as you're given into it, and I am pretty sure from the experience that we had.